I may be the oldest hat.
The Catholic view would support the ghost's incitement of Hamlet to revenge.
It did then.
It did indeed, yes.
It did then.
Revenge in terms of the state. You see, not in terms of personal
This is a king.
a king
And
who has
it does-
responsibilities beyond anything else.
There's
It
a
does come
divinity
from-
Yes,
that
that's
does
it.
hedge a king.
He does come from purgatory.
But we don't know that. Hamlet,
Yes,
he says so.
What?
The ghost says it.
But Hamlet denies it later on.
But the ghost has
It's a-
come from purgatory.
Yes, he said this may be a spirit from hell.
Yes. To
Yes,
damn me.
Yes,
Well,
well,
only
I
because
think
he's
that-
sent to damn me, whatever
I think
they-
that in a way that possibly...
No,
the
no, no, no,
ghost
not
is.
because he's forgotten, simply because
No.
he's embracing all three
Yes.
points of view. It may very well be.
Yes, I think it well may be.
You see, why in the name of God do people do not... you see, Shakespeare, as far as if I'm not right, then I'm wrong about the whole place. If Shakespeare wants a character to say anything, it is said quite clearly, and one knows if he's a villain, or a nice man, or a nasty man, or whatever he may be. It's known quite clearly. It's stated to the audience, and... Now, if you choose to disbelieve what Hamlet says, then fine. But Hamlet, in fact, says it may be a spirit from hell.
The spirit that I've seen may be a
devil. And the devil has the power to assume a pleasing shape.
I think Hamlet is the man to believe in the play of Hamlet.
I am sure. In fact, in every one of Shakespeare's
Yes.
plays, you must believe what the gentleman says.
That's it.
What do you think about the ghost? I mean, you've played the ghost, Mr. Milton, as well
So
as
have I.
you played the ghost too. How do you see the ghost played?
I felt it was a very strange experience playing the ghost after having played Hamlet so often, so that I really became, in a way, the father of Hamlet more than a spectral symbol, you see. I came as the wounded father, more than
Quite right, I think.
than as a phantasm. But whether that was right or wrong, I don't know.
It's a difficult part, in fact,
Yes, I played
Shakespeare played it, and that's why he played it.
because it was
Because it's the toughest part in the play.
I played it
He must have been a great actor.
Yes, one thinks so. I was reading Henslow's diary the other day.
He must have been a great actor. It's nonsense that he was a bit player.
No, well, indeed not. I mean,
He played Iago.
there's
It's
evidence.
almost certain. yeah.
Henslow, who was the sort of Binky Beaumont of the time, his diary is now extant and written. And the cast list are there. He played all of Johnson's leading parts.
You bet.
Face.
Leading player. And when he
Yeah.
played the ghost, it was because the ghost is the key to that play. I've often felt that the best actor in the company ought to play it, and the up-and-comer ought to be Hamlet, you know. Because
It's a
if
funny
you can
thing.
make that father
You should say
count,
it's
you know?
a very funny thing, because I find when I play it, and I don't want to talk about it really, but I am most moved in the play with the ghost.
Yes.
from me, whose love was of that dignity,
Yes,
that it went
yes, it
hand
is
in
a-
hand, even
it's
with
a
the vow
most
I made to her in marriage.
tragically moving encounter.
And the whole idea, again, the Elizabethan idea of unanointed, unannealed.
Yes,
Yes.
No
disappointing.
shriving time.
Yes.
And which is the way he dispatches Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, which is what Rebecca West calls him a bad man for, and it is about the most wicked thing.
terrible thing to do. Yes, you send them to purgatory, you send them to hell.
Indeed.
Yes, I'm sure.
No shriving time, not shrive, whatever quarto folio you read, but no shriving time allowed for Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, or Polonius.
But I think that Hamlet's gone a bit demented by then.
Well, I think it's...
Yes.
In fact, I made what...
This has got to
my,
do
own,
with
my only nod towards Freud in the entire production,
Yes.
I'm afraid, was at the dress rehearsal, when my fate cries out and makes each petty artery in this body as hardy as the Nemean lion's nerve. At the dress rehearsal, I said in a loud, clear, ringing voice, my fate cries out and makes each potty artery in this body as hardy as a Nemean lion's nerve. Yes.
Wonderful.
Yes, but I think it is. I think it is a crazing
Yes, with the king, and he saw.
Yes.
He just left.
that in his endeavor to carry out the ghost's behest, he becomes deranged because he's naturally not a vindictive person, but a person of great sweetness and loveliness of soul. And he has to become embittered and revengeful. And I think that deranges him.
Isn't the word maybe a modern word? Sick. Terrible, low-class, trashy word that people use now. Sick.
Poorly.
Yes.
No, no.
No, I
no,
sick
no,
in
no.
the sick in the sick like a sick
That's right.
joke.
He's sick.
But not mad.
Not crazy.
Not crazy.
Poorly.
Well,
I don't really think he's mad at all, but that's...
I think everybody in the play is mad.
He's
the only
upset.
sane
That's
thing in it.
right.
He's upset.
What is it to be mad? To define true madness.
I think
What
his
is it to
real...
be truly mad. This is Polonius in the play.
I don't think any madman ever said, "Why, what an ass am I?" I think that's a divinely sane remark.
Yes. And you feel insane when he dies, something like that, don't you? You feel
Oh,
one
yes,
has died as a
yeah.
sane man, all right.
What an ass am I? That feeling that it would go on being played if everybody didn't think they could play it.
Including
That's
women?
really a phony question. I'm sorry I asked it. I don't mean that at all.
Women?
What? Oh, no, women, oh?
I mean, women
Oh,
do
yes,
play.
women have played. There's
Yeah.
a silent movie, isn't there, by a great Danish tragedian, and of course Sarah Bernhardt.
Did anybody see it? You didn't see
Bernhardt, when she played it, put forward a marvelous theory. It was the time of Shakespeare and Hamlet was the time of Queen Christina, who Miss Garbo,
it? Yeah.
who was
Was drawn to.
indeed drawn, yes, who was the original Svenska raving dyke. And I think it's rather sweet.
Indeed.
Whether this has anything to do with the play, I don't know, but it's rather
It
sweet.
throws an interesting light on the Ophelia scenes, anyway.
Indeed.
Why in the end, why didn't, when all's said and done, why didn't Hamlet kill Claudius? I mean,
Because there would be no play if he did.
Exactly. Because there
I
were
thought
5
so.
acts to go. and Shakespeare inherited a revenge melodrama
That's right.
into which he placed some of the greatest living stuff that man has ever made. Language and everything else, spirit, fire, everything. Marvelous. But there were 5 acts to go, and old Claudius couldn't be killed until the last act.
Yeah, not quite.
Also,
so.
I think quite
That
that.
we
Yes,
talked about we
yes.
talked about that earlier on, about the divinity that hedges king.
Yes, and all that.
Also, I think that there is basically in Hamlet a moral retractation from murder.
Precisely, this is right.
I-
No,
You
this
feel
is
that?
not true.
I don't
How can
agree,
he,
Ernest,
He gets
no.
rid of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern without
With a
Ah,
smile.
Yes, but he's done that by the time he's gone over the edge.
If we agree that he's gone over
What
the
about
edge.
Polonius?
By then, I think he has
What about
gone...
Polonius?
Well, Polonius
Bit
is an accident. In point of fact,
Ah,
he must have thought he
yes,
was the king.
Yes, you're right, and he
I
does
suppose
think,
it had been Ophelia.
he thinks that...
Could have been anybody
he
behind
thinks
that.
Polonius is the
Suppose
king.
it had been
that is
Horatio.
true.
But he was obsessed with the king, and he saw.
Yes.
He
felt
just left the king
anywhere.
at
We just didn't know the king isn't there. He's just been, the king
Ah,
is
no,
on the
just
been with
prie
him.
Yes, but he thinks
saying,
that
you
the
know,
man
my
behind
offense is
the-
right.
Ernest,
He thinks the man behind the tapestry is the king.
I think
and
he
thinks that he'll
Well, why
kill
can he
him.
think now he's just left him at prayer?
I don't know, but he just feels he's gone to ruin, that he's found
But he's just left him at prayer.
Your Hamlet does. I don't think another Hamlet need.
I think he thinks it's the king.
Well, sure.
I think he's perfectly
It depends
capable
on
of
which
murder.
text you
What he
use.
is not capable of
In
is
some texts
performing
there are
the
no
leading
prayer scenes.
role in a revenge tragedy.
Well, I use the text of Hamlet.
You used the prayer scene,
Yes.
and then you killed the king in the closet,
Oui.
having left the king wee-weeing in the...
Si, si.
The time is out of joint, oh cursed spite that ever I was born to set it right. That to me is the thing. He doesn't want to have to play this role.
No, he doesn't.
He
No, well, that
is
means
drafted into a
I'm
role
with
that he
this.
doesn't
I
want
feel
to
the
play.
play...
But I seem to think you're saying what
It's
Ernest Milton
microcosm
says.
again.
That's it.
But you're saying what Ernest
so
Milton
Shakespeare.
says, that he doesn't want to.
No, he's a reluctant avenger.
Precisely.
But not that he has some particular hatred of murder. He does murder. We see him murdering.
Oh, yes, but I think that comes out of the subsequent hysteria.
Because I don't.
You don't agree, then.
No,
That's
I don't agree. That's right. That's right.
The whole, it's a different kind of thinking, you know. This man is a marvellous gentleman for the Elizabethans, I'm sure. Extraordinary man.
Who's the best Hamlet you've ever seen? Is there such a thing again?
Guys.
Yes, and he did a very extraordinary thing. He came on in the To Be or Not to Be. Presto!
Yes,
He
yes.
said, To be or not to be, just the eyes of...
Yes, but in German
You
it
see,
sounds
in
good.
German, "Sein oder nicht sein, das ist die Frage," you see, and it went on like that. And although I disagreed with it entirely, it was quite arresting. You see? I mean, you can be thrilled by a thing and totally say no, I don't. But it doesn't prevent you from becoming interested and excited.
Have you got views about the diction of Hamlet as a whole, apart from the person who's playing it? It'll obviously vary with everybody.
Yes.
But do you think it ought to be spoken poetically?
Oh, I do. I think that there should be. I think it should not be done declamatorily in a Victorian way, with ponderous classicism. Certainly, I don't feel that. But I think that it should have a certain ictus.
5 heavy feet in each leg.
Yes. I think that there should be. It should be very flexible, but that you must keep a certain musical rhythm. I don't mean to listen to your own voice. I don't mean any nonsense like that, or sing it. But I don't think you can treat it just as prose.
Ernest, you know the simplest...
the prose passages, which can differentiate.
Which are lovely to play, aren't they? After all that verse,
yes,
which is so disciplined.
The simplest reading that I've ever heard of it, the most beautiful and the simplest, the least rhetorical reading that I've ever heard is the record of Forbes Robertson.
Yeah.
Which is much more modern than any Hamlet. I haven't seen Peter's.
Yes, it is.
But
it's lovely,
beginning with the Old Vic of Larry and Gielgud, it seemed to me people moved back, way back into full-blown, wonderful, heroic acting because it was dying in the English theatre. But it's no use saying that that in living memory the older actors were more rhetorical, just the opposite.
No,
But
yes.
Gielgud was extremely. It was a very poetic reading.
Yes, rather as though he were dictating Shakespeare.
Yes.
Seems to me. You know, have you got that? This
The
joke?
great-
It's
the
so
aw-
beautiful.
The awful thing and the terrifying thing is if you try and explain Hamlet, I think.
Yes, you can.
Yes.
Can
The
I-
great thing that
Yes, you
Gielgud
shouldn't.
had was the sense that he was a poet, and that he did know that he could completely encompass the beauty of what he was dealing with. But
You're quite wrong about this.
That if you've begun your Hamlet young, you can play it for the rest of your life. Because when I was a youngster, I saw both Forbes Robertson and Benson. They were in their 60s and past it. They were too old, but as they had done it early, they still could play it, and within 20 minutes you accepted it. You forgot that they were too old to look at. But you can't make your debut in Hamlet at 50. No.
alas,
Yeah,
But you
have
can
got to
play
have
it.
played it young.
But I
He's
think
right,
if you played
damn
it
it,
young,
yeah.
you can play it forever.
I read an account of Betterton's Hamlet when he was 17. Now, Betterton played it first when he was 19, some
Exactly.
15 years after Shakespeare's death.
yeah.
So he could go on playing.
Yes,
so
and
he
one-
got the youth in him.
And he must have been playing it
And
within
also-
a tradition.
I'm sure, this is the point.
Yeah.
Someone's handed on.
Sure.
The old terrible Vitae Lampardo.
This is what you
On
do
this-
here, laddie.
On this.
Hand goes on the skull on the second
When I was
line.
in Hamlet, my wife played Gertrude, and Ophelia
this-
was
on this
played by the
traditional-
lady I was. Hamlet has been, so butchered. I mean, not only by the comics, but by Oxford.
Yes, yes.
But I've got a thing at home which I think someone must do if we could find it. It's by a Mr. Sawyer. And it's called Hamlet, a Travesty. And the ghost sings a song called With My Jawbone, Tombstone, Skull, Shroud and Skeleton. And the Queen has a song called Ophelia is a Sad Slut.
Oh, that's
What is
charming.
And it ends with a great boxing match between...
1840.
About 1840, Drury Lane-ish, yes, Sadler's Wells.
Very nice.
Famous dog Hamlet in the 19th century, which went on for something like 45 years.
A dog Hamlet.
The dog Hamlet.
How do you mean?
Oh, it's the well-known dog
Yeah.
Hamlet. Hamlet always had a dog,
Yeah.
which he talked to. A trained dog. It was part of the whole the fireworks, the pyrotechnics of the production. To have a
Really?
trained dog. Yeah. That's
Well,
marvelous.
If you took this Hamlet of yours, this Hamlet that looks externally from outside at the
The
play,
cool Hamlet.
the cool Hamlet, yes, this affects the way in which lines would have to be
Yes,
spoken,
that's
doesn't
right.
it? How does a cool Hamlet speak? Oh, what a rogue and peasant slave am I? It's sort of in a cool way. Oh, what a rogue and peasant slave am I?
It's a kind of terrible... It's the way a cool Romeo says, is it e'en so that I defy you stars?
That wasn't very cool.
It's on top of it.
very
instead of
involved,
inside of it.
very
It's a
involved.
very, yes, it is involved.
It's on top of
That
it.
reading was very involved.
But you know,
Lousy.
It's beautiful. It's primarily about three people, three sons of fathers, Laertes, Fortinbras, and Hamlet, all of whom their fathers are murdered, and all revenge their fathers in different ways.
That's very good.
Never occurred to me.
Fortinbras, version, which at the end everyone recovers miraculously, a mountebank, a tall, but was Elizabethan, and it's all very clearly stated and clearly reasoned. The passions. I mean, to me, all Shakespeare's plays are essays in the passions. The highest of which and the most noblest, and the one that which governed and made man different from the beast, was reason. Sloth was a passion, grief was a passion, anger, jealousy, revenge, all these things. Hamlet, I think, is, in a way, a tragedy of grief.
Also slow.
Sloth. Sloth and a contemptible passion to the Elizabethans, a truly contemptible passion. Fortinbras, I thought I made a discovery. And to their literature, it wasn't the sentimentalized thing we know now. Grief was indeed a killing, slow. I mean, it was to do with the humours, the drying out of the brain.
Isn't despair maybe a better word?
Grief was the word used, in fact.
Yes, I think despair is the
Can
right
I
one.
read a
in
little
Christian
Thomas
terms.
More to you, who the dialogue of comfort against tribulation? And here shall I note you two kinds, this is what, 1594. I shall note you two kinds of folk that are in tribulation and heaviness. One sort that will seek no comfort.
This business of everybody
What are there that will seek no comfort, nor yet none receive, but are in their tribulation, be it loss or sickness, so testy, so fumeth, and so far out of patience that it booteth no man to speak to them. And these are in a manner with impatience as furious as though they were in half a frenzy, and may with a custom of such fashioned behaviour fall in thereto full and whole. And this kind of heaviness in tribulation is even a mischievous high branch of the mortal sin of ire. Now, Laertes falls into that category.
He's full of the mortal sin of ire.
Oh boy.
Yes?
He goes stark raving potty to avenge his father. Will do anything. Hamlet is the other one. There are many other ramifications of this, but this is a simple Elizabethan model for philosophy of the passions. Fortinbras is governed always by reason.
Have you ever, Mr. Milton, done a reading of the part against that kind of background of thought?
No, I can't say that I have. I think that I have found it a study of passionate disillusionment, a personal tragedy. I've not ignored its background, but I think I've approached it, shall I say, rather imaginatively than intellectually. I don't believe in having a reason for everything. I think the dove should descend, and sometimes it does. Sometimes it doesn't.
Well, I've seen
An actor up to now, until this interview, speak as I would like to hear actors speak, to identify a great tragic role in Shakespeare with Elizabethan times. I can't tell you what pleasure it was to me to hear that from Peter O'Toole, because people always talk about what Hamlet is as though he were a universal man, or as though he were a figure in a 19th century novel. But to hear a serious actor talk about the character in terms of the times in which it was written, it's quite a new experience.
Oh yes, and it's quite valid. Yes.
Of course it's valid, but I'd never had the happy experience of hearing it before.
But in the two productions that you've done,
They weren't very good. I can only talk about the next one.
Yeah. How did they how did they differ from each other? Did you take a different line?
Yes, but you know, I can't really count my productions of Hamlet as
If you were going to
successful.
do a production starting tomorrow,
Yes.
You would undoubtedly make him an Elizabethan figure.
No, because we aren't living in Elizabethan times. In agreeing with Peter, what I mean is I think it's wonderful to approach the problem and to interpret, to find that as a key. But of course you don't do him as an Elizabethan man if you want the audience who don't have that sort, don't bring that kind of thinking into the theater and sit.
What is it to be?
To me, the first point about Hamlet is that he's a genius, not that he's a prince, not that he's a man. He's simply the great figure in dramatic literature who is a man of genius. There
he's the Renaissance man.
Yes,
The
he is the Renaissance man. Yes,
But
perfectly true.
that's the same thing. The Renaissance man and the man of genius are not the same.
I was going to ask before we went on which one we were going to say about Renaissance or Renaissance, because we're on BBC. What should we stick to?
Yeah.
Renaissance?
Which do you like?
I don't know.
Let's say Renaissance. Let's say Renaissance. Why not?
Well, that's a new one.
That's right. That's a new one. And compromise.
Anyway, that fellow from that period, of course he is of that period, and of course that's the key to it, but he is also a man of genius.
Bannon saying on this program, after he played it or while he was playing it at Stratford-upon-Avon, that one of the most unexpected things to him, I hope I'm remembering properly, was that it was exhausting for a reason he hadn't expected. Not because the part was long, but because he thought Hamlet's thoughts moved at such enormous speed that the soliloquies, and indeed all the long speeches that he had to make, seemed to him, Bannon, to move at a greater mental speed than would his own mind. I mean, he felt that Shakespeare had written the part for a man who thought...
That isn't much of an admission, is it? You know, Shakespeare was the greatest Englishman who ever lived, so anybody who speaks English must feel he thinks a little faster than oneself. You know, he certainly did.
Yes. but notably that
but the point is, surely this is the point of blank verse. The lady shall speak her mind freely, or the blank verse will halt for it. Hamlet says this.
Yes.
You don't have to think. You think after the line.
Yes.
Not before it or not during. The line is the thought. This is the point of iambic pentameter.
Absolutely.
Very, very well put.
Absolutely true.
This discussion is going to wallow in agreement, you see.
And it will all be totally different if we ever played it. I want to see him play Hamlet, don't you?
I wish to, of course.
Yes.
You'd hardly say. I wouldn't mind playing the Ghost. As a matter of fact. Well,
I think I'll play it
I'd like
again.
to try that.
I think I'll play it again.
Well, I've done the biggest and naughtiest trick of all, but it's terribly effective. I think I invented it, just to play the Ghost and the King as brothers.
I think...
No,
Pretty good part. Am I wrong? Has it been done by...
When you're playing Hamlet and you see the Ghost, are you terrified? What are you? You say angels and ministers of grace very quietly. What you are is kind of deep, reverential. Angels.
Quite right. I haven't seen it, but that's... that's it.
He does. His head throws back.
That's it.
There's again, I'm afraid the play stands or falls by this very point. I think, personally, it is inadequate to explain the play. But I don't think it would be inadequate to an Elizabethan audience. The attitude to the Ghost. There were three attitudes. There was the Papist attitude, which was that spirits were sent from purgatory. And they appeared 3 times without saying anything. One had to observe their expressions, whether they were pale or red, or in sorrow or in anger, or what. And that on the 4th occasion, this is Papist doctrine of the 17th century. On the 4th occasion, they would announce what in fact they had returned to earth for. But they had to be questioned very particularly. Now, Horatio, in his speeches, follows the Papist doctrine perfectly.